Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of AyAyAyAi.
Ay, ay, ay! AI.
AyAyAyAi.
There you go. There you go. We got all three of us doing AyAyAyAi, where we bring the AI topics where we are either very excited about AI or we're very scared about AI. But either way, AyAyAyAi catches it all, right? The expression catches that ability to say we're excited or we just give up.
Yeah, the ranging of
Um,
emotions and the sentiment is can be all absorbed by ay, ay, ay.
exactly. And we have somebody who's very familiar with a lot of languages and differences in phrases and understanding in cultures, and somebody who was very knowledgeable about machine learning and AI. And
Right.
that to me is a blessing in the middle of the week on a Wednesday to have somebody in that level come and engage us in a conversation about AI to give us some insights and understanding of AI so that way we can prepare ourselves for what's about to come. Hello, Bassel. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Asif and Lucky. Thank you so very much. I'm so excited to be part of this podcast and hopefully discussing some things that will interest the listeners and have fun along the way.
Absolutely. So, Lucky, what you got today?
Well, there's been a lot of interesting topics out in the news with AI and the big changes. So when we could try to cover some topics, but I'd really like to know more about Basil and find out more about his experience with AI and what he sees as being the big changes. Because I think we covered it briefly, but I don't think anyone sees this coming. AI and machine, and we'll just move off of AI, but more the machine language portion of it. And there's opportunity there, much like cloud. A lot of people slept on it until all of a sudden everyone's transitioning to the cloud. I think AI or machine language and the growth of data, the usages of data, and being able to make decision based, smarter decision based because of the data is going to be becoming more frequent because of machine language. And so, Basil, how do you feel, or what's your experience with that?
Lucky, really great point. I think you mentioned the cloud. I think we should look at, before we get into AI today, look a little bit about the history. Every
Hmm.
single AI model and machine learning model mathematically has been developed for, to many people's surprises, some of them in the 1800, if we look at regression.
Hmm.
And I remember, and now I'm going to show my age, when I was going to undergrad and graduated in 1992, my final year project, I built an AI model back then. The difference was between that time and today. There were really, I would say, three main revolutions that pushed AI to the forefront.
Hmm.
One is the amount of data that we have and the variety of data that we didn't have before. Number
Hmm.
two is the cloud. Basically, I can have storage, compute, everything I want at the click of finger. I don't have to go buy servers and set them up.
Yeah.
Three, the third component is really containerization. So when you can containerize stuff and run that workload anywhere. So you take those three together, and that powers AI today. That's why, if you
Yeah.
look in the past 10 years, we've seen more advances than we've seen since I graduated college till now. So these three things came together: a lot of data, unlimited processing power through the cloud, containerization, and then you have a variety of things that you can do with AI and machine learning, right? So we look at things as, I can do natural language processing, anything that has to do with text. I can do computer vision. I can do reinforcement learning, like playing a game and being better than the computer. I can do
Mhm.
recommender systems. And there are so many other elements to it, but really I just wanted to frame it of why AI is so important today and why today, as opposed to 20 years ago.
Yeah, that reminds me of three stars lining up, right? Because we did talk about AI winters, AI summer, as in for the last 70 some years, we've had this possibility where AI was on a verge of breakthrough, but it will
Mhm.
go dead because of some data set is not being available. How do you research more data? And once you have the algorithm, which has been around for hundreds of years, You also have a hardware system that has been around for hundreds of years. Well, you don't have data, and not having that data is what stopped AI from developing further. Today, in 2011 or so, after Google has come out and said no, it's very possible the revolution of that took off. One of the scary examples is that Putin came out and said, from now on, Russia is totally dedicated in developing AI because that's what's going to keep us in a forefront of the battles
Hmm.
worldwide. We are going to be able to battle so many topics and so many angles from using the AI technology that we'll develop inside of Russia. And it will be sneaky. It will be full of misinformation. It will do so many campaigns that is not visible to naked eyes. These are kind of powerful tools that the AI summer that we're going through right now has given birth
Hmm.
to. And this time around, Google and Amazon and Microsoft, they're all looking at it from a long-standing AI summer, right? Because of data. And I think, Bassel, you hit something that is very easy to grasp and understand. Is that once you have the hardware, once you have the algorithms, okay, great. Because that hardware and algorithm, Alan Turing had it back in 1950s when he was trying to defeat the Germans
Hmm.
by using algorithms and encryptions of coding. Well, he didn't have the data sets that we have today. And we have more data sets today than ever before. And we've been able to capture and save it and keep it for usage and structure them properly in order to engage with machine learning. So thanks for bringing that up because that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought up great point. I mean, if you look from a geopolitical perspective, China wants to be the leader right now. Russia. So even for us, being in the U.S. and what does that mean? Really, it's the next war. The war is happening every day. Most people don't
Yeah,
realize that the war
exactly.
is happening every day. Whether it's cybersecurity attacks, or people are not throwing rockets and missiles at each other, but we are at war. Make no mistake about it. It's happening every single day. Identities are being stolen. Things are being broken into. I mean, lucky, I know cybersecurity is a big thing for you, but we're talking about cybersecurity as a country. We're talking about
Hmm.
cybersecurity from a supply chain resiliency. Well, what
Yeah.
happens if we can't get microprocessors? What happens if we can't get X, Y, or Z? What are the ramifications of all of that? So it's really critical having AI systems in place that one help support the resilience of the supply chain, supports the resilience of the cybersecurity, supports the resilience of our nation is really critical. And I think for people, we tend to think of AI in terms of like, yeah, I go on Amazon and I get a recommender system. That's one aspect of AI, but
Yeah.
there's a whole different aspect that people are completely unaware of. And really going back, I think, to a conversation you mentioned, Asif, was all about disinformation. We know that happened in our last election. It's happening today. It's what's polarizing us. It's
Hmm.
whatever content you want, you can find today, and it's not written by people. That's the sad part. The tweets that you see,
Wow.
the posts that you what is real. So basically, we live in an era we cannot differentiate what is real from what is fake, and that's really really problematic, I think, on many levels.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like we have the AI, was it CPT-3 or CTP-3? And then that AI would have problems with linguistic. You could kind of tell that it was off a little bit,
Yeah,
but now
GPT-3. Well,
GPT-3. Yeah, that's what
yeah,
a
yeah,
GPT, not CPT.
yeah, yeah,
GPT-3.
yeah.
I'm thinking of C3PO
It's funny.
or Johnny Five. But yeah, the you see that, and then you see now the improvements they've made with the Dali or the
Yep,
Dolly.
yep.
Oh my gosh,
For
that is
pictures.
just, you look at that AI and you're like, that there's no way that was put together by a machine.
Yeah, I mean, it looks straight out of a dream, the type of things
Yeah.
that they go in there. But I mean, with everything that we mentioned, yes, there are risks and scary things that could happen, but also we have to look at all the positive. It's kind of like saying, hey, the
Hmm.
internet was really bad because somebody can do, I don't know, something bad on it, but also has done a lot of good, right? So we can't throw the baby with the bathwater. Same thing with AI, right? We can say a car is bad. If somebody takes a car and drives it into people, does that make the car bad? or the person bad, right? So just because I can use a tool that is not meant to do something bad and weaponize it doesn't make the tool bad. So I think we need to really decipher these two and really understand that. And for
Hmm.
people, even if they're not in the AI and machine learning world, I think we really need to get more data literate and understand what are some of the things that we can do, because it can help you on so many different levels. But there are some things it cannot help you with. We talk about responsible AI and ethical AI. Well, there is a formula that I can encode mathematically to basically determine how do I create, for example, back propagation, to or do or estimate a cost function, to be a little bit technical.
Hmm.
But I can't encode in the formula mathematically how to create ethics and how to treat people well.
Or
And that's what
relationships. Yeah.
you cannot encode that. Maybe in the future we can. So the challenge is we're asking these systems to act responsibly, and the problem is we don't have a mechanism to code to encode these things within them.
Hmm.
Something that a child knows how to do. Like if you have a cat, and the child pulls the tail of the cat, the parent would say, "Hey, don't do that." Right? They will learn across time. Well, how do you encode something like that with an AI system? Right? These are some things that we can learn and teach a kid in like 3 minutes that you cannot teach an AI system very quickly. Something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that reinforcement learning, that ability to teach a child, a 3 year old, 4 year old, 5 year old, to teach them, it's much easier. So as they grow older, they always correct their behavior accordingly. That's important. That feedback and survey that AI collects is crucial for. Not, let me not call it an AI, but it is machine learning pretty much. To have that ability to correct itself based on the scorings that it will provide from the feedback and the surveys. And then depends on who does a survey. Like that, the language that we were talking about, Tay, the Microsoft Tay, it went haywire within 24 hours. Started saluting Hitler.
Oh yeah.
Because the feedback and surveys that the Twitter has provided it. And even today, actually, the news today is that the Facebook AI for the no, it's not Facebook anymore. It's Meta.
Meta,
Metaverse.
meta.
Meta.
Meta's AI went haywire. It called Zuckerberg creepy, and
Well, I
and
think
it,
he was
it
telling the
did so many
truth.
other things just in the time it was released. Yeah, sometimes it tells the truth, and sometimes it just gets really messy. And these kind of ability to control data, like if you're looking at it from the surface level, okay, that's one use case that we are really entertained by. And
Hmm.
here's a few other use cases that you say this is life changing, this is game changing. And then the other AIs you look at and say like, well, we cannot do without this AI in our society. And then you flip that chart and you start seeing other types of AI that is, let's say for example, my favorite go-to example when it comes to nefarious behavior is the loitering bombs, right? Loitering drones, drones that are they're able to fly off to the distance and lose contact with the ground control,
Yep.
right? So it has no ability to control or no ability to communicate with the ground control and do whatever it does for it to
Um,
complete its mission.
Yep.
So this loitering bomb, it hovers over this target, wherever the target it finds, and precisely captures that target by suicide kamikaze type of mission, right? It flies into the target and destroys it. And I don't want to say like I'm trying to not make it so nefarious sounding, but it
mhm.
is that nefarious because what happens is that if AI is able to label and target and mislabels and targets the target, we have problems in our hands that we might not care. Well, we should care, but we don't care because it's so far away in a different land. But it's
Mhm.
coming closer to home, right?
Yeah.
Those drones are coming home, and those drones could be dangerous. And those dangerous drones are easy to make. Doesn't take that much effort. It's a cheap drone that could turn into a device that is destructive. The nature of
Yeah.
that drone can change from flying to targeting things.
As if they're easily hackable and turned against us too. So
Hmm.
so there's this other part. But also, I mean, let's look at the good stuff that AI does. Imagine you're in a remote village, right? There aren't enough doctors over there. uh, they probably don't have a dermatologist. Hey, you have something on your hand or your chest or whatever it is, and you take a picture. Tell you, hey, this could be dangerous. You need to do a check, right? You can do iris scan and things like that to figure out what kind of solutions for a potential problem that you have. So yeah, we have the good and the
Yeah.
bad, and I think
Hmm.
we can't put our head in the sand and only focus on the good, because there's a lot of use cases for AI and machine learning are helping society. But like you said, there are other use cases that could be used nefariously, but we have to put the guardrails. And I think,
Yeah.
the talk about the responsible and ethical AI is critical. And how do we implement those, right? And how do we
Hmm.
implement them in a way where it's, where, because AI and machine learning, you're always optimizing based on a result that you want.
Yeah.
So if I say as a company, hey, I want to sell product X, and for me to sell product X, I need to have a lot of traffic. So my optimizing function is to drive most traffic. How do I drive traffic? Maybe through content. Well, if my content is bad, right, or obscene, it may drive more content than me trying to preach, world peace, for example.
Hmm.
So basically, what I'm optimizing on is more people coming to my website, but then my content is becoming worse and worse, and
Or
maybe more and more offensive, which is doing exactly what I wanted to do, right? So when we're designing these systems, we're gonna say, well, yeah, I want more content, more people coming to my website, but also really important, another metric is the quality of my content, right? So not to have something that's not appropriate for kids, not to have something that's offensive, people of races, religion, sexual orientation, what have you, right? And then you optimize for that, and then you optimize for traffic, right? So it's a two-step process,
right.
and really thinking through. Unfortunately, when companies build these systems, they're not. They say that we care about the customers, but they're not. So
Mm-mm.
you gave the example of Meta, right?
Yep.
So what do they care about? They care about having you hooked on Instagram and Meta 24 hours a day.
Attached.
So the more I can keep you online, the better it is to me. Well, do we know? We have seen a lot of data come out for that generation that grew up with social media, having a lot of mental conditions that
Hmm.
didn't exist 20 years ago.
That's right.
And I'm not saying it's Meta's fault or Google's fault. I'm saying as we build more and more things, we need to understand the effect of these things that have on people. And really, the overwhelming thing that should happen is what's good for people is good for the companies, right? And
Hmm.
we are at a disconnect. We have that issue with governments. We have that issue with companies for profit. We have that issue all over the world.
Yeah.
It's not just to one section.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And this is what I see for the future. I don't think that a lot of people see AI in a Skynet or some kind of central neural net that's going to manage all of AI, and that's not realistic. You see how we are now. Can we agree on anything? Anything from one thing to another. We have governments, we have specific races, we have religions. But if you just forget about all that, take that off the table, and just realize if anything, any government has something that's worth value, typically they weaponize it. If it's some kind of resource. But then you think about the private public sector. What happens when they have something that's worth value? What do? They put a patent on it, and they wrap it, and they try to wrap it and package it and sell it. So with AI, I see that there's going to be so many different flavors of AI, and none of them are going to communicate, and they're all going to be defending themselves from each other, is what I see. I see that each AI is going to have its own construct, its own architecture. Maybe at some point we get to different type of compute systems, but at the end of the day, I just think it's going to be a big, not see disconnected, just not centralized AI, and that's where I think a lot of people are scared. They think AI is going to just take over the world. It's going to be a long time,
I
and and it.
Listen, I agree with you on the concept of what you're saying is we're not there today.
Yes.
But do I see that in the future? I absolutely do. right? Where when I sit and right, let's define take
Yeah.
over the world. When you have basically algorithms that are so powerful that
Hmm.
can keep on learning, that keep improving themselves, we're not there yet, but it's happening right now in the private industry. Tomorrow in the future, I can imagine in healthcare. I'm just going to give you an example.
Hmm.
If you develop small devices at the nano level, like nanobots that are
Wow.
biodegradable in your body, right?
Hmm.
That are monitoring literally every metabolic reaction that's happening in your body. Blood sugar goes up instead of now trying, heart rate goes up,
Hmm.
whatever goes down, and things like that. And they can automatically start blunting that because I know, okay, my cortisol level is high. That means your insulin is high. Maybe I can pump something in there to lower it. So you can start optimizing in real life.
Wow.
So now we're using that for good.
Yeah.
Now imagine I have that in you, and I say, you know what, Lucky, I don't like you today. What can I do to create a heart attack? Oh, poor guy. Then we can, then I can basically push your stress level high. Your blood sugar goes super high. You go
Hmm.
into hyperinsulinemia, and then your heart stops. And people will look at you and say, "Oh, poor guy had a heart attack."
Hmm.
So there are. I can see the system evolving by
Hmm.
the use of new type of nanobots, by use of AI, by
Yeah.
use of quantum computing, all coming together in order to create either something incredibly wonderful for human race or incredibly bad. So I don't think we're as far as you think we are. I really
Hmm.
don't. And going back to your other point about weaponizing happens on the commercial and government side, not just the government side.
Exactly.
So when you eliminate your competition and create a monopoly, that's weaponizing, right? In a way. So everybody's weaponizing, and then we're asking these same people to
Hmm.
create a responsible and ethical AI when all their practices are not responsible or ethical.
Absolutely, and that's where I was going. Is at the end, I don't know if we have all these different companies always developing something, and at the end they just package it, and we're just a consumer of it, and we don't know the good or the bad. We end up just learning, and so we're going to learn. We're going to figure out how these AIs are going to be put together, and at the end is what data you provide. And I'm really scared, but we'll see. We'll see, and it's going to be interesting. The next. Well, how far do you think we are? Because I was saying, back in the day, I was estimating with cloud. I'll say we're about a couple of years, 2, 3 years, and it, 3, 4 years, it hit. I'm estimating with AI, we're about 2 years from machine language really becoming a staple for everybody. Like where they at some point they didn't necessarily know they needed it, and now everyone's living it. We're a couple of years from machine language, just it's part of everything, and it is pretty much now, but more so where.
So I'm gonna give you an idea of how fast
Okay.
things are going, right? So in machine learning, you have machine learning models called transformers.
Hmm.
Transformers started in 2018 with a paper called "Attention is All You Need." Right, and one of the things is basically they have an encoder and decoder. Some transformers only have encoders, some of them have decoders, some of them have two. Why is
Hmm.
that really important? Before, when we used to do natural language processing, we would use something like RNN or LSTM, long short-term memory, recurrent neural networks, and things like that. If we wanted to do computer vision, we would use something like um, God, I'm trying like convolutional neural network, CNNs. Today, we only use transformers for the best output. If you go on a website called Hugging Face, right? Hugging Face. .ai, I believe. They have all sorts of transformers over there, probably thousands of them. You don't need to know anything about AI and machine learning, right? All you need to do is you get this pre-trained model, and all I need to do is change one layer, which is the top layer, and say I want it to train on this data set, and you do this transfer learning. It
Hmm.
literally requires 5 lines of code, and you can probably create one of the most sophisticated natural language processing or computer vision systems with very to little knowledge in programming. Okay, that didn't exist, and by the
Hmm.
way, they train a lot faster. They need a lot less compute resources. So in 2017, if you had told me that, I would have laughed because I could not fathom it, right?
Yeah.
I remember how long. And again, going back to my undergrad, I trained a machine learning model to understand yes and no recording. I had to use fast Fourier transform back in 1991. It took back then the machine 3 weeks to learn yes and no. Now I
Wow.
can do a automatic translation in real time, almost in real time. And
Yeah.
the training, I can use a pre-trained model to translate between any language to any
Seconds.
language almost instantaneously.
Yeah, seconds.
So
Yeah.
so 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 now we're saying is, where are we going? We don't know, because most people are AI ML practitioners. They're not building the algorithms. We use the algorithms. We
Mhm.
don't know what new algorithms are coming up that are going to become mainstream, like I mentioned on for instance on the transformer, that could change the game, and for us to see things completely differently. I mean, now we'll talk about multimodal search. So you want to search for something that may have an image and a voice and text at the same time. Before, when we did Google, it was just text, right? So multimodal is happening a lot. The incubation of these different things, the ability to do them really quickly, and all these pre-trained models literally give you superpowers that you couldn't have fathomed just 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it
And
sounds like we're turning it depressing, and we need
no,
to be
No, no, this is
no, no,
fantastic.
no, no. That sigh was what I. It kind of like what is it called, that like when you open a gift box, like you unwrap it. It
Yeah,
just unwrapped a lot of things in my brain because the
Mhm.
way you explained it, like I'm sitting here, like I always calculate. Me and Lucky, we always calculate, like, okay, how far in the future are we talking about here? So like,
Mhm.
now, like Lucky said, 2 years doesn't sound that bad, because I always sit there and kind of justify, like, Lucky, are we serious talking about 2025 being a landmark shift in AI development, that we're going to look back and say 2025 was the year, just 3 years away from now? Um, the, when you put that together like that, it just unraveled. Like, that's how serious it is. Like,
Mhm.
20,
Wow.
by 2025, we are either in it or we're out of it, right? We're not catching up anytime soon if we don't do something aggressively and very deterministically by 2025. And that is based on the paper that Eric Schmidt wrote to Pentagon.
yep.
Said, 2025 is the year for you if you want to be able to grow an AI over time and
Wow.
have that AI grow up to catch up with the rest of the world, right?
You
Mhm.
can't.
Uh,
I mean, China is ahead of us. I can tell you that
Oh,
much
yeah.
from now.
absolutely.
They're way ahead of us because they've marshaled all the resources and
Mhm.
all into it, and everybody from the university to all. They've
Yes.
recruited everybody, right? So that's a big problem. They're developing a lot more algorithms than we are today. They have a lot, and plus they don't have privacy issues. Like, they can
Mhm.
they can take images of everybody in the country, and nobody's going to say a word. So again, AI and machine learning is all about data, and they can capture all this data, and nobody can. In the United States, if somebody captures something about you, you can raise hell, whether you're successful
Mhm.
or not. But that kind of slows things down. In countries which have these type of regimes, I would say, you can capture so much data, and therefore you're feeding these models, and therefore you are growing at a much faster rate than a country like the United States can.
And that brings us to that bias discussion that we've been chatting about, because China doesn't have a bias problem. I mean, all AI has a bias problem, all human has a bias problem, but China does not care about bias the way we do in the United States. And bias
Mhm.
is what destroys a lot of the trust in AI. And I think we can discuss too many biases, but we can pick one and maybe discuss that as well.
Yeah, and the issue with bias, right? So there's the bias that all of us understand, like, I don't like I don't like pepperoni on my pizza, as an example, right? Or let's. I lived in France, and I love the French, by the way. I went to undergrad school, but like, hey, I hate the French, for example, right?
Mhm.
As a bias, or whatever it is that you have as a bias. These are biases that we all understand what they are.
Mhm.
But the challenge with data, when we talk about data, there are biases that are encoded, and there are biases that happen over time. So let's take a concrete example. When COVID started, right? Let's take Amazon. When COVID started, everybody, for some odd reason in the United States, decided that it's a good idea to go buy TP, toilet paper, right? Because that was going to solve the problem. So if you went on Amazon and you did not order toilet paper, all of a sudden you're getting a recommendation on things around it, cleaning detergent, gloves, I don't know what, because all of a sudden there was a spike in
Mhm.
in the prediction. People were buying so much toilet paper, the algorithm learned this new behavior and said, I'm a recommender system, so let me now say what goes with toilet paper and try to sell that to you. Now,
Mhm.
this is a heuristic example that doesn't have any major repercussion, but that's an example of you could have the best model that is trained on good data, and all of a sudden the world has changed. Now you're going to have bad prediction. Now you have different bias. The
Yeah.
way you do the way you have to look at the statistical trends of what's changing between what your algorithm trained on and between what new data it has not seen that's coming through. So that's one part of bias, right? You have other types of bias. Well, we talked about pre-trained models like Hugging Face. So if I go in and I know that my model is trained on, let's say, for example, Wikipedia,
Mhm.
right? Wikipedia has a specific format, right? So if I go use that model and start training other things, whatever it has encoded from a Wikipedia is going to be part of it as well. So here I am using a pre-trained model that I want to train on my data, but it has all the inherent biases that have already been encoded. That's another type of bias that you're going to have, right?
Mhm.
You talked earlier about, pixels, I think, before the show in terms of computer vision, right? Well, it's a lot harder to look at pixels that are darker than what it is that is lighter, and that becomes on skin tone, right? Whether
Mhm.
you're Latino, African American, white, whatever, right? So what do we need to do? We need to create more pixel elimination in order to differentiate these things, in order for us to have a better understanding. So if today I'm African American and I go online, well, and I do a search, I need to do a search that's relevant to me. Let's say I want to do makeup. I need makeup that's relevant for my skin tone, that works better for an African American than somebody who's white, for example, right? So, but the challenge is the internet itself. If you go look at it, there are a lot more pictures of white people than you have black people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
encoding all of that, right? So
Right.
it's not that AI ML is bad. It's because the data that we currently have, that we've already produced, already have encoded all of these things. I'll take
Mhm.
even one more example. CAT scans or things that predict cancer or what have you. So there was this really interesting thing about CAT scans and people, and all of a sudden this AI model was predicting a lot more cancer of people who were laying down than people sitting and getting CAT scan. Uh, so it encoded in the model, if you're laying down, you are at more risk of having cancer than if you're sitting and getting a CAT scan, right? So you see what I'm
Wow.
saying? The bias
Yeah.
can come, or even it's
That's
scanned of like I wrote in blue instead of in black. That is more of a sign of danger. We don't know exactly what is
Mhm.
encoded in terms to give us the exact result. The scary part is whatever they encode, it's usually very accurate, but you
Mhm.
don't know. It's kind of like doing two minuses to get a plus. You may be going around the solution the wrong way, but you're getting the right answer.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And
So
and
these
you,
are,
and it's in
these
human
are
nature. We
bias. I just wanted just to mention a holistic picture of what are we talking about here.
Yeah, because it's a human nature to have a bunch of data sets and say that data set will get me somewhere, not realizing there's more data set needs to be collected, because
Mhm.
we get very biased towards the data sets that we already have,
Yep.
rather than going out and looking for more data or more opinions or engaging with more humans, right? The human in the loop concept
Yep.
to engage with the right sort of stakeholders, right? Who's in the table? Who's discussing these topics? I mean, I just want to throw out the example of Chinese AI that detects face, right? That detects facial recognition. American company was auditing that Chinese AI, and they saw a target of all different races and Uyghur, as in the Uyghur population of China that China is targeting in order to, um, I guess there's no better
Genocide.
way. Yeah, they're just trying to incorporate them into Chinese world by pretty much killing them off, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Discriminating
So
them. Yeah.
there's no other
Weeding
way of
them out.
saying it. That's what they're doing. They're literally saying, if we can take the babies, the female population, and decrease them to a point that they cannot give birth anymore, we will not have Uyghur problem in the next 50 years.
Yep.
Uyghurs will disappear from the earth, right? So they had a Uyghur actually as a way of recognizing a Uyghur separately from a Chinese person,
Hmm.
right? And that information disappeared on the second version because the audit gave out all the information about saying, oh, you can identify a black person, white person, yellow person. That's literally how they categorize the yellow, and then they have a category of Uyghur, right? So these are the kind of human interactions that are causing AI to put out an output that either is again nefarious, right? To me, it
Yep.
is very nefarious to with the treating the Uyghur population, but also that population that can benefit from it, as in like when you talk about cancer scanning, right? Medical reasons, or
Mhm.
you put that out in structures to see how is that structure holding up, what sort of damages is occurring in the structure, so that way we can maintain that structure for longevity, right? We can able to keep a bridge intact for years to come, because we don't pay enough attention to the bridge on a daily basis, but a camera and AI put together can capture all sorts of information about a bridge and keep that infrastructure well maintained and well greased.
Yeah.
I love all these AI use cases. There's just tons of them out there. But when it comes to that bias perspective, I think we care a lot about this bias, and we should. And that's what's going to make us delayed into the game, but the best in the game. As in,
Mhm.
yeah, the rest of the world has all the data sets put together. But guess what? If people, that human in the loop, that people rejects your AI system that you built for so long with not considering bias, not considering the ethics, not considering all these little micro topics, people will reject it, because whatever works for majority doesn't mean everybody accepted it. Minority will bring that down, right? As in that history is full of the little amount of people, the little population that brings the whole system down to its knee,
Yep.
right? That has happened so often and frequently in the history, that AI is no different, right? So for me, I think we will be delayed to the game, but we are approaching it the right way. We are slow to the game, but we'll be okay at the end.
100%. And I thought, you talked about human in the loop, really important concept. I would say, instead of thinking AI as an autonomous system making decision, it's really human machine teaming, right? That's what
Mhm.
we really want. We need to encode in these machine learning systems some of the values, some of the ethics of why we accept or reject something. Bias could also be good, right? If
Sure.
I'm walking down the street and it's dark and I see, I don't know, five guys, I'm gonna say on motorcycle with chains and guns and knives, my internal bias is gonna tell me, you know what, let me cross the street. They may not hurt me, but they may hurt me too, right? So having a sense of danger is a good thing. So
Good thing.
not
Right.
so not
Mhm.
all bias is bad,
Right.
right? Sometimes, of course, when we're discriminating against other people, is obviously bad. But if I'm keeping myself safe and my family safe, that's a good thing. Again, I think that you brought in human in the loop. I think that human machine teaming is really critical into getting these systems better and better. They shouldn't have the final decision making on your credit, whether you need to get a loan, whether
Right.
you get a
Right.
job,
Right.
whether you're
Mhm.
allowed to date a person or you
Right.
match that person. There are some things that are really, I think, intrinsic of what makes us human. And if we offload that to a system, I don't care how
Right.
good the system is, we're
Yes.
we're 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 we're, we're also offloading part of our humanity at the same time.
And
Yeah.
I love where this conversation is heading, because we all
Mhm.
agree about human in the loop. I mean, look, the paradox here is that inherently, when you develop machine learning, you have to put weights and bias into it
Mhm.
in order to develop machines. So it's not the machine's fault at all. Look, literally, our brain, the neural network inside of our brain is based on how much weight and bias we have in order to come to a single response, right? We don't make decisions on things that we're not familiar with or it's out of our sight. We only make decisions based on things that are on our sight, and we have to make decisions for those things, right? So Weights and bias is how our neural network is built, and when we build a machine that is supposed to replicate how our brain works, and we are creating models to have it make decisions, we'll have to put weights and bias in it inherently. It's
Well,
just
and
maybe
the
unless we can find another way of doing it, but for now that's what we have.
and and, and
So
and Asif, I mean, you said something really important. Your weights, your internal weights and bias as a
Hmm.
human is basically encoded by your experience. I'm just gonna give you a quick example.
Exactly.
Uh, our family has a dog. We love dogs.
right.
My wife, when she was, I don't know, maybe in her early 20s, she used to go to her friend's house. Her friend had a German Shepherd. And one day that German Shepherd decided to bite my wife.
Oh, I
Okay.
had that happen
I mean,
too.
she still has marks till this day.
Yep. Same here.
Her
Teeth.
we're a family of dogs, right? We love dogs, all that kind of stuff. Till this day, when she sees a German Shepherd, she never approaches a German Shepherd,
That's right.
Hmm.
right? So when we talk about encoded, it's your experience, right? It dictates, and she knows that the fear is not logical, and she knows that all German Shepherds are bad, and it was a one-off, and all of that kind of stuff. Yet her first reaction is, if she sees a German Shepherd, she's not going to pet that dog.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, so these weights and biases is as real as it gets, right? Because if you have them, you are safe. If you have them, sometimes you make mistakes, right?
Yep.
Like whatever the case is, it's not so much that machine; it's the human that is developing, that designing of that machine learning, whatever. I mean, we want to call it AI, but let's keep calling it machine learning because I think that's
Right,
what's
right.
we're
Hmm.
developing. You develop much more of these capabilities over time, faster and easier, right? So I don't think the end goal is to develop and deploy. I think the end goal for me, or specifically, is to say design it very well, develop it fast, and deploy it with high caution, right?
Mhm.
As in, you need to be able to sustain it once you release it, right? Once you have to maintain and trigger and put lots of feedback and develop that AI, scale it to a level that is 99% perfect rather than saying 100% perfect. You should be able to think about those in a design concept. Like when you say, like, I'm going to design it with 100 people and those people will disappear once I deploy it, shouldn't be the case. You should have more people join once it's deployed in order to say, like, how do we keep this AI in line with our vision and our abilities? Because the bias
Hmm.
will grow over time, right?
Yeah,
Bias will happen. It
but
will experience something that it will give it that bias that we didn't necessarily develop into it, right?
Hmm.
that,
One other thing I want to bring to that is that when we talk about human in the loop, I think the benefit needs to be there, right? The benefit is that when you develop AI and design that AI very well, you develop an AI for it to become a augmentee for your workforce, as in it augments your workforce rather than shrink your workforce. You can do more with that AI using the current workforce, which is shrinking without AI at this point. But in the future, when we have that workforce that is like, we need to do more, but how do we do it? We don't really have that many people to work. We need to have an extension of our workforce to doing the job, right? So when we're talking about this machine learning and human in the loop concept, one of the things that I think we need to really focus on, which we discussed earlier, is that understanding data, having these knowledge about data. Just look at data for what it is and understand relationship between multiple data sets, right? Having these common understanding of data as say a citizen or community members, we come to understand when AI messes up, we can kind of look at it, so like, how do we fix that? How do we fix it fast, and how do we fix it without saying throw the baby out with the water, right?
Hmm.
So these data knowledge are important, because these data knowledge, and once you spread that throughout a community, the community starts coming back with data points that you never even thought of, because everybody has their own little bias that they bring to the table. And once they bring those data points to the table, now you're able to say, this is the new data acquisition that we have to build. We have to build model on top of this data acquisition, because multiple models put together, which is multiple machine learning put together,
Hmm.
not being in silos, but rather put together, that's how you actually come close to a artificial general intelligence,
yep.
right? Which is the goal that we have as a human, to say, yeah, we have narrow AI today, but we put those narrow AIs together, a bunch of those machine learning models together. Now we have a artificial general intelligence that can perform beyond just driving a car. It can order a latte for us if necessary, but they all start with that. general knowledge of data, right? And in the human brain, we have this thing called, you collect the data, you turn them into information, and that information turns into knowledge. But the thing is, it's really hard to do that actually, right? Because just because you have information doesn't mean you actually use it as a knowledge. And just because you have some knowledge that you develop doesn't mean you use it, right?
Exactly.
So the data management part is where we start. And if we can engage community members and populations in general about data education, not sort of like, understanding how to do master data and transaction data, just to understand like how the data are acquired, how the data can come together and create these machine learning models. I think we're better off in the future. I'll stop right there.
No, I mean, you bring up great points, and I think it. I mean, going back, really, it's not the AI model or machine learning model, and if we go from narrow AI to strong AI or general AI or even later to super AI, right?
Right.
The baseline is the data and the information that you're encoding, right? And that's critical. I think having people becoming more data literate is really important. Like I remember when I was younger, it was really important to learn another language, right?
That's right.
Just to survive in the world, right? English was the main language everybody spoke. It was the business language. It was great to learn English, right? So that was one
Hmm.
thing. I think, a few years ago, not a few years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, if you know how to program, that's also a language. It's a superpower, right? That you can use in so many things. I think today the data language is critical for people to understand and to learn more about, because if you don't understand that part or learn more about it, you don't understand where the world is headed, and
Hmm.
Ooh, that's
that's
so true.
really important.
Yeah.
You're gonna miss this big part. We talked about what things mean to people. We gave the German Shepherd example. Let's take what do you think of when you think of a wedding, right? Most people in the Western world will think of white dress,
Yeah.
some music, people sitting in the back.
Yeah.
But somebody sitting in Africa doesn't see a white dress. They
Mm-mm.
dress
Ooh,
completely differently. They
right.
don't have the same wedding song.
Right.
And the same thing if you go to, I don't know, China or other countries. But again, all this data is being encoded and giving me results that may or may not be true. So I believe that people need to learn more about data. So if you are from a different culture, or if you are from a different skin color, or if you are from a different religion, or if you are from a different perspective, you need to be part of the solution, so we
Mhm.
have more data on that, so we can encode that and we create less biased machine learning in the future, because
Mhm.
it's happening whether you want to get involved or not. The
Yeah.
revolution is on its way.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
can put our head in the sand. You may like it, you may dislike it. It's like the internet. I know some
Right.
people never want to use a smartphone. You don't have to, but it's happening, right?
It's
Mhm.
happening.
So it's kind of like when we talk about politics. I hate politics. I'm not going to vote. Well, then don't complain who becomes president.
Yeah.
So don't complain about where this is going when you don't want to get involved. And the minimum that you need to do is educate yourself. You don't have to be an AI and machine learning engineer, but you can certainly be part of the solution. There are some great organizations like Data for Good, for example, is a great organization that gets involved into things like human trafficking in order to stop that,
Oh yeah.
or
Right.
something about climate. Things I think that most people will not find controversial to
Right.
get involved in, and these are some great things to learn from, and how do they pick these data sets, etc. So these are some of the things. Just don't sit on the sideline. Don't think you need to be technical. For
Right.
our
Right.
listeners, we all understand data, we all interpret data, we've been doing this all our lives, whether in an automated or unautomated way. And you just have to get more and more involved, because every decision in life in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years is going to be driven by a majority of models.
Yeah.
I just want to throw this out there when we talk about AI for good and how data literacy, right, it allows you to think of data differently, how to put data together in order to come to a conclusion. One of the topics is like, you use Python coding in order to scrape website data where there most likely human traffickers are involved in selling, prostitution services or escort services on the websites. So
Yep.
one of the things that we did in, well, not we, but like this gentleman in New York City, who showed us how he did it, which is that he will scrape data on say Backpage.com, which is no longer existing, or Craigslist, right? And show that there's like multiple people posting there, but they're all generating from single computer. That is an indicator of a somebody who's a a human trafficker who's using a single computer, putting that information about multiple individual on the website.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of information is important because that information you have that
Hmm.
scrape the internet to find who are these people providing this escort service, and they are all being publicized from one single IP
IP.
address.
IP.
Yep.
IP.
So
Yep.
when you connect those
In
information,
Nigeria. Right.
exactly, you have
You
some
you all
connections to make to say
you
this
know
is not an individual doing an escort on their own. This is a human trafficking activity, and you can separate that out.
I got an email that I can make a couple of $1 million from a Nigerian bank account. I don't know if you
Did
guys heard about
did
that.
you give them the information? Because it's very important you do.
Yeah, you really got to jump on those opportunities when you
I
have a
mean, they
chance.
send you 5 or 6 different emails. There's a reason why they're following up.
I had my aunt ask me about that. She goes like, I can make $50,000. I'm like, yeah, you sure. Just give them your bank account, and you're gonna be on welfare very, very quick.
Give them Social Security so they can collect your paycheck as well.
Exactly.
Man, I've seen people actually even lose their income tax returns
Oh,
because of scams.
scams.
Yeah.
And this is called the IRS party in the hotel rooms in Florida.
Mhm.
They will go through these. There'll be like 10 individual ones inside of a hotel room, just going after one after another Social Security numbers and doing an IRS party where they're claiming somebody else's tax income.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. Be careful. It's scary sometimes out there.
And it's just that what you said about politics earlier is that you don't care about data, but people really care about your data.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's how you have to think, right? Not that you have to go obsess about it, but the data literacy is what gives rise to your acceptance into a good AI and brings your awareness about bad AI, like deep fake. One of the good examples is that Tom Cruise was playing guitar and Justin Bieber thought, wait, Tom Cruise plays guitar. Let me play along with Tom Cruise. And he picked up his guitar and he's doing this whole thing about Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise tells him, like, I'm not Tom Cruise. I'm this guy sitting in Netherlands with Tom Cruise's face telling you I'm Tom Cruise.
Mhm.
And it's happening in real time. So it can get scary, like
Wow.
Lucky's on the other side of the camera. It's probably is not lucky.
Yeah, and listen, we talked about how we're ahead on the ethical side, but I'll tell you, Europe, for instance, for general data protection, is way ahead.
GDPR. Yep.
And the GDPR is way ahead than we are, right? And the way you affect change is really by hitting the bottom line, basically companies' pockets. If companies in the, let's say, in Europe or in UK, right, mishandle your data, you could pay up to
Mhm.
5% of your gross revenue as a fine if you
Right.
mishandle one person. So
Yep.
think about it. You're a $10 million company, and then you you get hit by $500,000.
You'll go bankrupt soon.
That could cripple you, right? Because who knows how much profit you're making. So that's part of where we want people being involved. Citizens concerned about that, lobbying, because we need to have stronger data protection because it will safeguard all of us. That's why becoming data aware is critical.
This conversation needs to go on forever.
But
So
I
that
know
way
we've
people
been
at
talking
one
for a
point
while.
catches on and says, wow, this guy's been talking about it for a while. I mean, we've been talking about this for 53 minutes. Hopefully people learn something from it and take action. That's the key part. You have to
Yeah.
commit and
Yeah.
follow up. I come from it from conflict management perspective, right? I have a real passion to understand how to do conflict management and how to identify the nodes and say, how do we bring people together in order to solve or manage a conflict that hasn't even arisen yet, right? Those are the fun conflict because the conflict that never existed, nobody ever saw it happen. And
Right.
that's good, right? So the cyber warfare that you mentioned earlier, and there's the AI that is coming under the surface. It needs to be well thought of. It needs to be really recognized and dealt with properly and swiftly. And it takes time. It takes a lot of patience because the adversaries are going in like 100 miles per hour. We need to be at least 50 miles per hour in order to say we're still relevant to that matter. And I want to clear up the fact that I'm not anti AI. I'm for AI. I think AI is totally good, even though there's nefarious things to be done with AI. But I'm not threatened by AI because the models that we have to create are so complex to create. They will take time. And so
Hmm.
all the threats that we're seeing today are in a vortex of narrow AI, right? We're just seeing the threats when they come all together, and then we will say we need more. We don't have enough models because the way our brain works, it's so complex, and I can go down the rabbit hole of describing how our brain works. But at the same time, we know how complex our brain is. If we were to develop an AI that is threatening, it needs to at least match how threatening we are as a human, right? Our capabilities, right? The opportunities and intents that we can recognize using patterns. These are something that is very sophisticated, built into us for millions and billions of years of evolution, right? So for an AI to happen overnight that has become real threatening is only because our ignorance, not because the AI is actually that capable.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
our inability to detect those patterns of AI type activities and say, what sort of AI data can we use to subvert that, right? And I can tell you the real possibility right now that we have is to, sabotage data sets. That as bad as the enemy can use that against us, we can also use that to turn AI down, right? We can sabotage an AI, poison a data set to turn that AI into something very humble, like a little cat. Um,
I've never met a humble cat, Asif. I don't know what kind of cats you hang out with. but
Cats that are so far away
I
from
get
me,
your
those
point.
are humble cats. Cats are not nowhere near.
I know about the aristocats, though.
But yeah, I am so glad and so thankful to you guys for joining this
Mhm.
conversation because this conversation needed to happen, and we're going to have a bunch more of this conversation in the near future, engaging in corporations level or in a public school level, wherever we're to engage, we have to do that. So thank you, Bassel, and thank you, Lucky. Please give your last minute goodbye statement, please.
Yeah. Bassel, view
No,
for
I go
you, my
first.
friend.
All right.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
first of all, Asif and Lucky, thank you so much for having me. This has been really a blast. I know we've talked around a lot of topics. I think key takeaways, for our listeners. Please, please, please don't let any of these conversations turn you off. We just have to be aware of some things that could not be going well, but really the main point is get involved. There are so many opportunities. You can be part of shaping the future. You can be part, your data set, your thoughts, your ideas that you're contributing to could be encoding the next knowledge for the next generation and after. So don't sit on the sideline. Get involved, learn a little bit, get engaged, and I think we'll see a lot positive trends. uh, and all I have to say, it's a fascinating world. It's incredible. I, like you, Asif, I love AI and machine learning, and we need a lot more people with high ethics and high morals into the field, so we can really create better systems, better checks and balances, and really go back to the part of how can we use these fantastic algorithms to do great things. How can we solve shortage of water in the world? How can we create better medicine? How we can create better supply chain? How can we even be more compassionate with each other? Or, how can we stop crime? There are so many things that we can do with AI and machine learning, and we need more and more people joining and really becoming data aware. So don't sit on that sidelines. It's a call to arms. Let's change the
Call
world.
to arms.
Yes, and we can absolutely do it. So thank you.
Thank you. No, and it's hard to follow that, but I'm going to just agree with everything you said. Don't fear AI, get in gear and get in with AI.
Ay, 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 ay.
Ay, 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 ay. Thank
Thank you
you.
both. We'll talk soon.